All right, almost nobody denies that if we pass health care change, we'll need to borrow money, at least at first, to pay for it. That means more Treasury auctions. And the one guy who knows more about those than anybody else in Congress is Representative Mark Kirk. He's a Republican from Illinois. Congressman Kirk, it's Brian Sullivan. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
All right. You're welcome. The funding issue. Now, the president's saying he won't sign a bill that adds, quote, one dime to the deficit. But yet, when you look at the way that we're projecting the numbers, it's a little tricky, right? It's like, well, okay, we're going to collect money for 8 years, and then we're going to start paying out. You know, that's why the CBO fears the next decade more than they do this decade. How will we fund this?
According to the Congressional Budget Office, funding for the $900 billion health care bill will come from three sources: a $160 billion Medicare cut, a $580 billion tax increase. For example, for the people of Illinois, it will push the top tax rate to 49.97%. Ironically, that's 4 percentage points higher than France. And then it will add $293 billion to the deficit.
Hey, we got you beat in New Jersey. 39.6 on the federal level, 10.75 on the state level. We're creeping above the 5 handle there. But even if you tax the million or 2 million richest people in America at 100% of their income, you couldn't pay for this. You took every dime they made. And 90% of millionaires are self-made through hard work for the most part. You take every dime they have, you're not going to be able to pay it.
I don't think we can afford this bill because it's an enormous tax increase right in the teeth of the worst recession in living memory, and it substantially adds to the budget deficit. The president claimed that he would not support a bill which increased the deficit, but we have to go by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office analysts, and they say it will increase the deficit by $300 billion in the first 10 years. In the out years, the deficits grow even further.
Well, you don't even have to listen. To be honest with you, I was watching the speech last night, and my wife brought up an excellent point. She goes, forget about the estimates of the CBO or the president. If you add 40 million people that are currently not insured to an insurance program, how are you not going to increase costs? How's that even?
That's right.
Just numerically, statistically, you can't. You have to. If you add 40 million people when there were zero, you're adding something.
That's right, because remember, the Medicare program covers roughly 40 million people for $400 billion. And so if you add another 40 million people, you can work out the math right there. We also see the unfunded liability of Medicare is already $11 trillion. And we've seen so many government programs run over their budget. So the numbers just don't add up. Markets were reassured when Congress didn't pass this bill in July, showing that the direction the Congress wants to go is directly against the interest of the long-term economic growth of the United States.
You know, so far, and let's get back to treasuries. I know it's a little bit wonky, but we have been, as a nation, issuing so much debt, and we've been lucky so far in that so many buyers, China in particular, Japan and Germany, really those three countries, and retirees buying up our debt. They're funding our deficits. How much more? China's already expressed concern about our level of debt, by the way. How much more debt can we sell before other nations either say, we don't trust your economic system, or we're going to have to offer them such a high interest rate that the interest alone on our national debt is going to start to bankrupt us?
The U.S. government is quickly running out of other people's money right now. We have a $2 trillion deficit projected. Secretary Geithner has asked to raise the debt limit extension of the United States from $12 to $13 billion. We've seen other sovereign borrowers collapse in their ability to borrow money, especially Germany and the United Kingdom. And the top foreign holder of our debt just switched from being Japan to China. And China, the top customer of U.S. debt, has signaled strong reservations about increasing their holdings.
And we just said that the Commerce Department is going to impose a big duty on imported Chinese steel, which is probably making steel workers here happy. But if we start doing so, they've got monetary and political more power than ever over us now. Owning all that debt,
they do.
It's going to be a lot harder to do things like impose tariffs to protect American jobs when we fear they could just dump our debt, spike our interest rates, and really damage the housing market.
Well, we're seeing also a decline in the value of the dollar, pushing up the cost of oil for Americans. It's a huge signal for future inflation. Also, another signal is the quantitative easing policy of Chairman Bernanke. This is a technical way of saying printing money. Currently, we've printed over $160 billion that we do not have. And that is, of course, concerning investors across the world, especially in Europe and Asia.
Okay.
Because if we continue this printing policy, dollars become worth less.
All right, Congressman Mark Kirk, got to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks
We're
for
back
having
with two
me.
people you want to hear from, Liz McDonald and Tim Geithner, but not together.